minutes we've had a statement from the family of one of the British hostages killed in Algeria. 46-year-old Paul Thomas Morgan died in the gas plant attack. Tonight his 65-year-old mother Marianne and his 36-year-old partner Emma Steele has said this. Paul was a true gentleman, a family man. He very much loved his partner Emma, his mum, brothers and sister, of whom he was very proud. He loved life and lived it to the full. He was a professional man, proud to do the job he did, and died doing the job he loved. We are so proud of him and so proud of what he achieved in his life. We are devastated by Paul's death, and he will be truly missed. We would like to thank the family support officers for helping us through this difficult time. Well, continuing with the story of that Algerian siege, the extraordinary story now of survival with one British hostage who escaped the attack in Algeria, telling Sky News how he and his colleagues hid from the terrorists and feared for their lives. Alan Wright, who is one of 22 British captives who are now back home, revealed the details about the moment he had to decide whether to stay holed up in an office or risk his life by making a daring getaway attempt. Sky Scotland correspondent James Matthews has the story.
Who's Daddy?
One day Alan Wright will tell his daughter Esme his story. The tale of a working week to rival any fictional adventure, with terrorists, hostages, gunfire and a great escape. It began for Alan like everyone else in the Algerian gas plant, when suddenly the power went off.
We just tried to listen for communication to find out what was going on. By this time he then started to hear gunfire, quite loud gunfire.
Alan hid inside a room with 3 other foreign workers. The terrorists couldn't find them, not for the want of trying.
We had the doors open again and someone came in and in a very friendly national voice said good morning, but not in English, in Arabic for good morning. And we are certain that that was the terrorists coming in and just trying to lure people into to coming out friendly. So that was the first moment that you thought we're in big trouble here. But they never. They walked down the corridor, obviously checking the rooms, but the fact our office door was locked and they couldn't see in was enough to. They just walked out again.
Still in hiding, Alan managed to call home on a satellite phone to his wife, but not his young daughters.
When I phoned my wife, she asked if I wanted to speak to Imogen and Esme, and I couldn't, because I thought I don't want my last ever was to be in a crackly satellite phone telling a lie, saying that you're okay when you're far from okay. So I didn't speak to them that night. I said I hope I'll speak to you in the morning.
This was the video Alan shot the next morning of the great escape of him and his colleagues, prompted by their Algerian workmates.
They decided that they were going to cut the fence and make a break for it, asking the 4 of us, do we want to come with them? And that was when you don't know what's out there, and we know that the terrorists are dressed the same as the security forces. It was a huge decision. Do you stay or do you go? And so we all took a while to decide, but then I wanted to stay, somebody else wanted to stay, but then we just get caught up in the heat of the moment. You know, the national guys have got so excited and got themselves into such a frenzy about wanting to escape that they just threw me the hat, put the hat on to try and make you look less expert. So I just put on the hat, same as everyone else, and they cut the fence, and that was it. That's when you knew we're going, and we don't know what we're going to.
Talk me through.
Yeah, the first cut of the fence, the first wire that went, the wire under tension, just makes such a noise when it breaks, and you knew it travelled to where the terrorists were, so that was it. But within 30 seconds they had both fences open and free to go, and as I say, that was it. You just backpack on, try and disguise yourself as best you can, and away we went.
But having escaped from the plant into the hands of men in military gear, Alan feared he'd made a fatal mistake.
We got about a kilometre into the desert, and you could see on the right there was a military point with 8 or 9 military personnel with guns pointing in towards our part. But also they'd identified us and were sort of making traps to come our way. Then you think, well, you don't know if is it the terrorists or is it the gendarmes? As we got there, we were obviously searched and put down, but then we were put to one side. So the Algerians were kept at one side and we were kept on the other. And then you're thinking, you've just made the biggest mistake of your life.
He quickly made the call home to his wife in Aberdeenshire to say he was safe. A stark contrast to the message 5 days earlier.
I was at Toddlers with Esme and I got a text message, and when I read it, it said, "Don't panic, terrorists have invaded the camp. I'm safe hiding in an office. They've taken over the factory and the accommodation block. Do not reply to this message. BP will phone to say I am missing. I am not missing. Love you all."
Alan says he has no criticism of the Algerian military's intervention. He is grateful for the help it gave him. But here the relief of a dad who's come home is tempered by thoughts of colleagues who have not.
We were playing football on Tuesday night together, and now you don't know who's home and who's not home. It's horrible feeling.
James Matthews, Sky News, Aberdeenshire.
David Cameron's warned that the hostage crisis in Algeria is a reminder of the global threat being posed by terrorists, a problem he says could last for decades. This is a security source in Algeria says that the number of hostages killed in the siege has now risen to 48. Sky's Enda Brady has this report.
These images show the remains of the security convoy that the militants attacked as they forced their way into the complex. And these are just some of the weapons they used as they overran the site. Note the military-style uniforms that the terrorists were wearing. In the middle of it all, this was militant leader Abdelrahman El-Nigeri, recorded as he told an Algerian army officer precisely what he wanted.
You see, our demands are so easy if you want to negotiate with us.
Okay, go ahead.
We want the prisoners you have, our comrades who were arrested and imprisoned 15 years ago. We want 100 of them.
How many?
100.
Okay, continue.
We are prepared to die. Either we get our brothers or we die.
Within hours of this conversation, Algeria's special forces made their move. And these hostages were the ones who escaped. They emerged with their hands up once the 4-day siege was over. After days of uncertainty, only now is there finally some clarity about what actually happened. The attack focused on the gas production area where the terrorists were holed up after being driven out of the accommodation block a mile away. Militants blew up part of the plant to push back surrounding forces. 15 burnt bodies were later found. The facility was booby-trapped with explosives, hampering efforts to retake it. The siege, 48 hours after the attack on the convoy, took out 11 terrorists, but only after they murdered 7 remaining captives. Weapons recovered included machine guns, mortars, missiles with launchers, RPGs, and grenades arranged on explosive belts.
What we face is an extremist, Islamist, violent, Al-Qaeda-linked terrorist group, just as we have to deal with that in Pakistan and in Afghanistan. So the world needs to come together to deal with this threat in North Africa.
Defeating an Islamic jihadist group can't be done, however, simply by eliminating one figurehead.
Al-Qaeda has lost a lot of its most prominent leaders, Osama bin Laden being obviously by far the most prominent, but it has not prevented the broader societal conditions which go on breeding new groups, new leaders. So this is not groups where you can just behead them.
The operation to dismantle mines and explosives left behind by the militants at the plant continues. So too, the questions about how this ended the way it did. Enda Brady, Sky News.
Let's get more now. Our chief political correspondent John Craig in Westminster. And John, looking at the Prime Minister's words, is he perhaps preparing the public for the possibility of further military operations now in North Africa as well as Afghanistan?
Well, no, that was ruled out by William Hague today when he was asked, not least on the Moynihan show on Sky News, about putting boots on the ground, as Mr Hague put it, in Mali, neighbouring Mali. So no, that is not what's planned at all. What is planned, and Mr Cameron has already talked to the Chief of Defence about this, is better intelligence in North Africa. You heard him there talk about switching focus from Pakistan and Afghanistan to North Africa. What he's talking about today is a global response to a global problem, otherwise, in other words, the terrorist threat. Here in Whitehall, in the Foreign Office and the Ministry of Defence, they're talking about what they call a corridor of terror in North Africa now. Now, Mali's one problem, now Algeria has become another, and they really have got to examine with intelligence and military and diplomatic means how they tackle it. Mr Cameron gave a very stark warning today. It won't just take months, it'll take years, possibly decades. Tomorrow he will spell out all this in a statement to MPs in the House of Commons, where he'll talk obviously about the mission, the botched rescue attempt and so on, but also these wider issues about the so-called corridor of terror in North Africa.
John, thank you very much indeed. And of course we'll